Okay, guys, we are live. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I, Nikhar Bhogna, from Trade Promotion Council of India, would like to welcome you all to this engaging webinar on the future of cryptocurrency in India. It is my pleasure to have an esteemed panel from industry and academia for this highly informative session. The panel includes Mr. Manhar Garegrar, Executive Director, Policy and Special Projects, Point DCX, Dr. Sushmita Ruj, Senior Lecturer, School of Computer Sciences and Engineering, University of New South Wales, Sydney, Mr. Sanjit Vijay, Partner, Deals and Valuations, Corporate Professionals, and Dr. Suranjali Tandon, Assistant Professor, National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. While policies like Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, and Mobile uh, have helped the digital finance sector evolve at a breakneck speed in India, a few months ago, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal pointed out that with more than 2,100 players and worth $31 billion, India's fintech market is one of the largest growing in the world. Astonishingly, India's fintech adoption rate of 87% is not just more than the world average of 64%, but it is also the highest in the world. It is expected to touch $84 billion over the next 3 years. As online payments gather momentum in the country, there has been a corresponding evolution in the way transactions are carried out. Now, transactions are carried out without using currency notes or coins or any conventional physical mechanisms like checkbooks. According to a recent study by Chain Analysis, India is among the top countries in the world as far as cryptocurrency market is concerned. It adds that cryptocurrency in India grew at 641% in the year through June 2021. Amidst the growing popularity of cryptocurrencies in India, regulators are worried about cryptocurrency being a secure medium for conducting transactions. For example, an interministerial committee constituted to study the issues related to virtual currencies in 2019 identified technical and regulatory risks associated with cryptocurrency. These include scalability and transaction speed, volatility, interoperability and integration, cybersecurity, data privacy, key management, governance, lack of maturity, lack of vetting standards, clarity about ownership and jurisdictions, customer due diligence requirements, and concerns regarding how transaction disputes or erroneous transactions can be resolved. The RBI too had expressed reservations about cryptocurrency in the past. To address these concerns, the government is reportedly working on cryptocurrency regulation. The draft crypto bill defines cryptocurrency as any information, code, or token which has a digital representation of value and has utility in business activity or acts as a store of value or a unit of account. The proposed legislation seeks to prohibit all private cryptocurrencies in India and to create a facilitative framework for the creation of official digital currency to be issued by the RBI. However, it allows for certain exceptions to promote the underlying use of technology of cryptocurrencies and its users. Another recent development is that interestingly, while India has decided not to recognize Bitcoin as a legal tender, the Union 2022-23 budget has proposed to impose a 30% tax on the profits made on such trades, besides subjecting crypto transactions to beyond a threshold to 1% TDS. In the context of the ongoing debate on whether cryptocurrency is a boon or a bane, this webinar analyzes the implications of cryptocurrency for businesses and the economy and the possible contours that the cryptocurrency regulation should take. To commence this discussion, I would like to welcome Dr. Sushmita Ruj, Senior Lecturer, School of Computer Science and Engineering, University of New South Wales, Sydney, to share her thoughts on how cryptocurrency has proliferated globally and what are the factors driving its global adoption. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. So when we think of cryptocurrencies, there are so many of them now in the market. And, when when the whole thing started in 2008, followed in 2009, I mean, it was, I think, a very timely process when Bitcoin was proposed by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2008. There was a global crisis, and many people had lost faith in the traditional banking systems. And having these decentralized system and having more democracy, there was very good uptake of Bitcoin. And it was one of the reasons, and because of this democracy, or the decentralization, and very nice properties of Bitcoin, and also very what would I say, more scientifically oriented design. It was quite popular. It became quite popular, and there has been a plethora of such cryptocurrencies in the market now. And many of these cryptocurrencies come with different flavors, with different nice properties. And as Nikar just mentioned, that there are a number of interesting features that these cryptocurrencies come with, making it an attractive option for different types of trades, different types of transactions, and so on. The way this has proliferated in the last few years, we have seen a large number of cryptocurrencies now in the market. The share or the value of cryptocurrencies have increased manifold. And we have seen cryptocurrencies come and go, but there are cryptocurrencies which have sustained, a long, which have been there in the market. And one of the things, so I'm a cryptographer. I'll talk more from the scientific perspective. The reason for this is that the design of these cryptocurrencies, which have been put to test over the years, which have actually have made it more, people have increased the faith on these cryptocurrencies to a large extent. Though, again, from a scientific perspective, I would say there are various design challenges with these cryptocurrencies, but the whole promise of decentralization, of having a democracy, of not reliance on a central trusted authority like the banks, these have actually helped. The other reason this has proliferated is the seamless way in which people have been able to trade. So earlier, when we would think of, having settlements across, cross-border settlements, which would take a very long period of time, now things have become much simpler with these cryptocurrencies. So, I mean, the good thing is that we have seen a good uptake of these cryptocurrencies, and also the underlying technology is so beautiful, the blockchain technology. I think much of it is also because of these, the nice design of this technology, which is not just limited to cryptocurrencies, but it has seen a large number of applications being built and, being used, which has been also have been growing side by side with the cryptocurrency ecosystem. So I think I will stop there, and if there is other, at other points, I will jump in with if I have any other thoughts also.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Roach, for your insights. I would now like to invite Dr. Suranjali Tandon, Assistant Professor, National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, to throw some light on what are some of the advantages of cryptocurrency and how is it relevant for businesses today.
Thanks, Nikhar. I know that Sushmita is an expert at this and she understands the technology with great clarity. But as we're imagining how this currency sort of helps augment functions of existing currency, I think, to my mind, there are two things that it can do, which money does at the moment. One is to store value. So it acts as an asset where people can lock in money, and this could either be on balance sheets of companies or companies could in fact even use this to their advantage, push them off the balance sheet and transact. And the second is, of course, to buy goods and services. The extent to which businesses will be able to use it for these purposes will also depend on, the double coincidence of wants, as we see in the use of money, right? So there have to be more people who use it for it to be used. So it's sort of a circular logic. At the moment, there are about, $2 trillion worth of assets in the market. In the US, you've seen that there are about 2,300 businesses that are already using crypto assets. So it indicates that some businesses and some transactions are beginning to pick up these virtual currencies or virtual assets. It's important to draw the distinction, but I'm not doing that for the moment. But they're using these two for transacting better. And of course, let's not limit to the business as well. When we argue in favor of virtual assets and currencies, it's also from the financial inclusion perspective, and I'm sure the other speakers will bring it up. But it basically brings in a lot of unbanked population within the system. So those are the few case uses that I have in mind, which work to the advantage. Of course, as Sushmita has mentioned, there are design challenges, and of course, countries are also worrying about other aspects which are regulatory. In the sense, when you create money, you are also undermining the position of a central bank. You're also posing challenges on how monetary policy will be designed, and of course, how exchange rates are fixed. So I think the major issue is again what this currency's inherent value is, and how then the central bank can manage inflation and exchange rate when you introduce this into the system. So, I won't dwell on that more because we're still focusing on the opportunity side. So, Nikar, those were my few comments on, business case uses.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tandon, for addressing this question. I would now like to come back to Dr. Ruj. Ma'am, from an outright ban on cryptocurrencies in 2016 to an upcoming bill regarding its circulation and regulation, the journey of cryptocurrency in India has seen quite a few ups and downs. What are some of the major milestones in this journey, according to you?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because when this whole thing started, by RBI, we were there in the first working group when RBI was looking into blockchains. It was not as much of cryptocurrency at that point of time, but it was more focused on blockchains. And I think over the years, the fintech industry has grown in India quite a bit. And that has also made everyone ask this question: can we have cryptocurrencies? How can we adopt cryptocurrencies? What are the challenges in adopting cryptocurrencies? What should we do in terms of regulatory activities so that this uptake is safe? Because we have seen there are quite a few there have been a lot of attacks in this domain. But over the years, what I have noticed is that apart from cryptocurrency, I'll tell this again and again, the technology itself, it has seen a big boom. Blockchains have been used by the government very nicely for various applications, and I think it's a really wonderful thing. We have seen land records are being done on the blockchain, and there has been a lot of supply chain management questions that are management solutions on blockchains nowadays. So what I feel is that with this, apart from the cryptocurrency perspective, there has been a lot of discussion around blockchain, and it has been really very positive. And the uptake of blockchain technology has been really phenomenal. I would say there's still a lot to do in this space. With the cryptocurrency bill coming up, it's really very interesting to see what exactly would be government's stand on various issues, as Suranjali also mentioned, there are a large number of issues that need to be addressed. So I will stop there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ruch, for your insights. I would now like to welcome Mr. Sanchit Vijay, Partner, Deals and Valuations, Corporate Professional. Mr. Sanchit, as you know, the government is already working on the Cryptocurrency and Regulation of Official Digital Currency Bill 2021. It defines cryptocurrency as any information, code, number, or token generated through cryptographic means or otherwise, which has a digital representation of value and has utility in a business activity or acts as a store of value or a unit of account. It bans all such currencies. So, what is your opinion on this definition, and why does cryptocurrency need to be regulated?
Thank you, Nikhar. For that purpose, I think with regards to definition, I create a presentation for everyone to just get a feeler on how it works. Let me know if you can if you're able to see it.
Yes, so it's visible.
Sure. Just a second. Sorry, apologies for the delay. Yeah. So with regards to the cryptocurrency being the definition and everything, I think it has been very well understood that it's a digital or virtual currency, which is a digital medium of exchange built on the technological platform, such as the blockchain. With regards to the legality, so far the Indian government has not yet granted any status of legal tender to cryptocurrencies. Back in 2018, RBI tried to impose a ban by restricting banking facilities to the crypto exchanges. However, the ban was ruled out by the Supreme Court on constitutional grounds. Tax experts have been contemplating the classification of cryptocurrency between currency or assets. With regards to the definition, if you'll see, cryptocurrency would be defined as a code, token, number, information, which is generated through cryptographic means, or otherwise which has a digital representation of value and has a utility in business activity or to act as a store of value or unit. So this definition will include all the cryptocurrencies, the NFTs, the in-game items, the digital art, the digital music, digital text that we have been all hearing in the news today. So if we just give a little bit of more analysis on the definition aspect, the scope of the digital asset is increasing at a very fast pace, and it now includes various categories. The definition has been very carefully worded in a way to include all the possible forms of digital asset. That being said, it is very accurate to assume that the government will be very closely monitoring the cryptocurrency environment to include any such asset. Prima facie, this excludes the digital gold or the central bank digital currency or any other traditional digital asset. But apart from that, all the coins, NFTs would be a part of it. To put a little bit in perspective, as it has been said by the panelists earlier, India is the highest number of crypto users in the world, with almost 100 million people, with an investment value of almost $6.6 billion. Again, in perspective, if you'd see some of the countries with the number of people, India is at 100 million, and the US, UK, Ukraine, Russia are not even at 1/3 of its number. So that ways, India is quite high. And that is why I would say there would be a need of regulations as well, or not, that we'll definitely come to a conclusion. So with regards to the regulation and the definitions, I would come out once I've been given that question. But the taxation structure stands at 30% of any virtual digital asset income that we would be accounting for, where no such cost of acquisition would be allowed as deduction, or any loss of transfer of virtual digital asset wouldn't be allowed to be set off. And with this is going to be starting effect from the 1st April of 2022. Any gift that we would be giving of cryptocurrency or virtual digital asset to any recipient would be taxable in their hands. Also, there would be a TDS provision that would be there in take, which would be at 1%, which in the hands of the seller. This would also be applicable from 1st July 2022. If I just put in perspective a little bit of case study, if there is Mr. A who has Bitcoin's worth of 10 lakh in December 22, which he purchased in April 2 on April 2 for let's say the cost of acquisition being 6 lakhs, excluding the brokerage. If we have to calculate the taxable income that would be coming out to in the case one would be 4 lakh, which is a gain, or in the case two being a negative of 2 lakh. In the case one, there would be tax of approximately 30%, which is coming out to be 1 lakh 20. And in case two, there would be no tax. However, this loss of 2 lakh would not be allowed to be carried forward or set off in any case. If need be, I'll answer the, I think probably on the follow-up questions, we'll answer the reasons on why the regulation is needed. Over to you, Nika.
Right, so thank you so much for this wonderful presentation and so usefully explaining this concept to our viewers. Now, sir, I would like you to throw some light on why the regulation is needed.
So as far as the why the regulation is needed, you would understand we have different aspects that we'd have to cover when there are so much people involved, so much money involved, and probably down the line with a 15% CAGR that would be up till 2020. We'd have to keep in mind the regulations are maybe necessary. The reasons could be to prevent market manipulations, or probably protecting the investors' interest. So market manipulation, huge volatility can be seen in the cryptocurrency and the virtual digital asset. Therefore, it is very important to educate the investors about the same so that they understand the risk. Also, it is very inherent that we control the market before its expansion, because at the crypto and the virtual digital asset is on the boom, it might become too unorganized to control. Also, there are things related to fraud and cyber security risks. Hacking is a major threat, and cryptocurrency ecosystem is built on technology. It makes it all the more susceptible, if not today, probably in the future, for hacking and frauds that might happen. So if there is proper regulation put in place, authorities can implement measures to help investors protect their assets. Also, one aspect of money laundering could also be there, as it is a decentralized platform. There is no account of how much asset someone holds. In an unregulated system or framework, anybody can use them to fund any kind of criminal activities or terrorism, which are inclined to use cryptocurrency for these transactions. It is much easier and safer for them to transact with this without any trail. So that has to be kept in mind. There are other issues also related to taxation that we'd have to keep in mind. Precisely, while these rules pertaining to taxation announced are there, there is still not any legalization of the crypto in the budget. Therefore, it is very paramount to attain some sort of clarity in that regards. Also, there is no clarity around how payments will be made for products or services by such virtual digital assets. Will that transaction be considered as a sale of cryptocurrency to another person? Will they be taxable? So majority of the cryptocurrency transactions are carried out in foreign currency. What will be the treatment of the gains or the loss arising from the foreign exchange fluctuation? That is also to be kept in mind. Also, with respect to GST, there is no clarity if the nature of cryptocurrencies would be a good or a service, what kind of GST implication on the transaction fees would be there to the miners or to the exchange where the consideration is paid in crypto. So these things would be required. Also, the enforcement of the TDS rules pertaining to cryptocurrency seems very impractical as on today, as Indian entities would be needed to pay a TDS of 1%. And what about the foreign people who would be dealing in crypto, or the crypto that would be coming in India? That kind of TDS rules has to be kept in mind. Also, a lot of small investors seem to think that tax can be avoided by doing P2P transactions, going through decentralized exchange. So all these are various pertinent issues related to taxation that has to be kept in mind. As we all know, there are regulations around the world in UK as they impose a similar tax regime as it applies to other currency trading. So does US. China has now banned. El Salvador has adopted now Bitcoin as a legal tender. So this is a budding form of regulations that we'd be keeping in mind, and the taxation and the law has to be, made out around it only. So yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your thoughts. This brings me to my next question. Um, so basically, as you know, the budget has imposed a 30% tax on current market value when crypto assets are gifted, or maybe TDS on virtual digital asset transactions. But from what we've read, industry believes that such a move is difficult to comply with, and they've asked the government to give a second thought to this particular proposition. So, what are your thoughts, Mr. Sanchit? If you could elaborate, and then we could move on to Dr. Tandon to throw some light on this.
Sure. So definitely with regards to the gifting and the TDS aspect, there are problems related to accounting, how they would account for the gifting and the TDS provision, because the cryptocurrency being on a decentralized manner, any kind of asset being transferred from India to US to UK, there could be many chains. That is why the blockchain concept is there. So TDS rules to be applied off, there would be no one seller recipient who would be paying taxes, if at all it is a foreign party. So that kind of complications would be there in the TDS regime. As now government has definitely announced the taxation structure, but there is still no clarity with respect to what kind of legal tender it would be, how the cryptocurrency has to be traded, what kind of measures they have to be applied on the crypto exchanges to take it into control.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for elaborating on that. Dr. Tandon, what would you like to add to this?
Yeah, Nikha, so just sort of adding to that, if we try and sort of put this into perspective, across the world, there's been issues with valuation of cryptocurrencies, and what do we take as the acquisition cost? So, say for example, today there's a land sale, there's indexation available, and you can arrive at a cost of acquisition to deduct. Now, for most cases, the cost of acquisition of cryptos are hard to establish. It also varies across cryptos, across exchanges. So I think to overcome that challenge, the government has sort of done away with the exclusion of costs when computing capital gains. It's an easy solution, but of course, it's a thorny problem as well, because those who are trading in these assets may consider the cost of acquisition, as substantive for not to be allowed as deductions. I think there's a cross purpose as well. Interestingly, in India, we've still not settled the matter on all other regulations, but tax seem to have moved ahead. So in my view, the imposition of the 30% tax, which is almost aligned with the top income tax rate, is also a measure of putting sand in the wheel. So it's sort of regulatory to sort of thwart the growing market. Now, of course, that in a sense can push this market offshore. So for example, there's been talk about it moving to Singapore or Dubai, and that creates the second level of problem, which is which what Sanchit has already mentioned, that how do you implement a TDS when you have one leg of the transaction with a non-resident involved. And at the end of the day, for any asset, you need to have full reporting. Now, it's all up to the exchange to report the information. The moment it gets decentralized, the moment the exchange does not think it's important to report, even if you implement a TDS, it doesn't really mean very much, in my opinion. So I believe that a tax at that rate is a way forward. In a way, it sort of signals intent to regulate. But at the same time, there are huge implications for administration and information collection, which I think will persist until all other regulations are sort of put in place to sort of pin the currency or the asset down to a jurisdiction.
Just to add some context here, if I may, from the industry side, right? So broadly, the entire purpose of this sort of a taxation framework is primarily to get a sense of what transactions are happening and to have some traceability, right? And the other piece is possibly that because this has been slotted in the in pretty much the same bracket as gambling, there is possibly some amount of thought process of trying to sort of restrain the activity a bit, right? So from our industry point of view, I think one of the key issues that emerge out of this kind of a framework is that the moment you levy a TDS of 1%, and you levy that on traders who are probably doing hundreds of trades a year, probably much more than that, and they're trying to rotate their capital and make small margins over a period of time. I think that creates a lot of issues for liquidity in the market. And that as any other business, whether it's the equities business, you will see that essentially there are carve outs for such kind of businesses, and without a similar carve out, there's a very heightened risk of liquidity drying up in the space. And then the overall end objective of the government, if it is to also look at this industry as a sunrise industry, which is going to contribute to growing revenues as we move forward, that entire objective gets diminished largely, by taking such steps. So just wanted to add that in. I think what you mentioned, Saranjali, I think that's also a very important point. There is no clarity today on valuation, and because there are exchanges between crypto, so when you exchange one crypto for another, what happens in that case? So EU, for instance, has taken a stance on no VAT on crypto to crypto transactions. So that sort of granular study and that sort of granular lens is important if we are to sort of look at this industry for the longer term.
Thank you so much, Mr. Manhal, for your observations. This brings me to the next question that I have for you. Which countries can India draw inspiration from in terms of regulating cryptocurrency, and which provisions can be incorporated in the bill?
Yeah, so this is the most important point here is that crypto is a global asset, right? It is a medium to exchange value across borders, and therefore there are challenges. So you will always hear, we've heard our honorable Prime Minister go on record to say that one needs global cooperation and global collaboration to try and rein in this new phenomenon, this new asset class. So that is a very important point. And we should understand that we've been speaking about concepts like global village. I mean, we used to study about those in school. So it's been a long time that we've been speaking about those concepts. These concepts are truly coming alive today. Today we are communicating across the globe 24/7. And then with all of the technologies that we've got, e-commerce is happening across the board, across the world. With this fabulous technology that Dr. Sushmita was able to highlight, it's a beautiful design. Without any trusted third party, you're able to exchange value. So that trustless system, which allows you to, which gives you a guarantee of settlement and which gives you a guarantee of value transfer without having to rely on any centralized party, that is the crux of this technology, and that is the reason why intellectuals across the world are hooked onto this technology, and they firmly believe in the promise of this. Now, with that basic premise, if it's a global asset, if it's going to be transacted peer-to-peer by individuals, if it's not going to be easily bound by our current structures and our current regulatory frameworks, then how do you essentially go about enabling some sort of guardrails and safeguarding mechanisms around this, right? So I think we've also been trying very hard to brainstorm and try and see how as an industry we can cooperate and work together with regulators to come up with some solutions. The good thing is that all of the issues that were highlighted earlier by some of my fellow panelists, majority of them can be sort of covered. And you can already see precedents of those coming out of the UK, out of the US, out of Australia, Singapore, UAE as well, right? So for instance, I mentioned the EU, the simple piece on VAT for crypto to crypto transactions, right? I think those are pieces we can pick up. Australia has a very evolved taxation framework. In fact, they go down to the level of trying to bifurcate traders and investors and then dealing with them separately, right? Because a trader will typically be doing this for business income, an investor will probably be making capital gains earnings, right? So, and there is a science to this investment. It is not something that that is similar to gambling or essentially it's not. There are research reports, there are on-chain metrics, there are network effects that can be studied, there are applications which are developing, and more use cases which are generating value for end users, right? So these are some very real things that are happening that determine the price of a particular crypto token. And if you study these metrics, you will be able to at least make a studied position on where the price will go. Of course, it's very difficult in any asset class to sort of try and speculate on prices. It is speculation at the end of the day, but there is a certain logic and certain science to this. Coming back to which other countries can we take some frameworks. I think Singapore has a very beautiful technology risk management framework. They have certain provisions around categorization of crypto. Similarly, UK, they've also come up with a very robust framework. I think the only caveat for us in India is that India is a unique market. It's a very large country. The Indian the constitution of the average Indian who's transacting, somebody mentioned a figure of 86%. You mentioned actually, yeah. So 86% of Indians are actively, participating in the fintech revolution. There's still a lot of propensity for scams and frauds, right? Because even in UPI, even in ATMs, I mean, I've had experiences where I'm going into an ATM and a person hands over his card to me and says, "Can you help me withdraw the money?" Right? Those are real. That's the on-ground reality today. So those challenges are unique to India. The capital control piece is very unique to India, and these are the pieces that we will need to think about as thought leaders in this space, and really work together with the regulators to come up with a unique regulatory framework. So in that sense, it's difficult to rely on precedents from abroad, I would say.
Right, so it is, in fact, somebody in our, we have a comment, they are also asking about fraud, which is something that you just mentioned in your remarks. Dr. Sushmita, what would you like to add to this?
I think it was very well articulated by Manhar about this whole, the regulatory policies in various other countries. I would just like to add that, apart from this, to have more confidence in this uptake, there is a need to put into place certain legal aspects as well. So, for example, we have seen in the past that there were, exchanges that went bankrupt, that had to be closed down. People lost a lot of money. And what happens in those cases? I mean, if your wallet, if there is, your wallet gets lost or your wallet gets stolen, what happens? So these are issues that, that has to be dealt with, that has to be addressed. So what happens if you have been in a fraudulent situation? What safeguards will you get if you have lost your money because the exchange is closed? Who will guarantee that you have some other backup, or you are well compensated for something? So these are also a few issues I think needs to be addressed apart from the tax issues. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that, because of this, mostly, a little bit of pseudonymity in the system, there is, there has been a lot of misuse of this cryptocurrencies. And I think from that aspect also, there is a need for regulation that Sanchit also mentioned. And there needs to be proper laws in place. Like if there is a fraud like this, how is it to be addressed? What sort of penalties would you be imposed if you commit such a fraud? So these things must also be, we should also discuss these issues as well. Yeah.
So,
Yes, Mr. Mathur.
yeah, just to add, so very pertinent points there. I think from the point of view of one of the key reasons why we also have been asking for regulations as exchanges is because we realize that while we can implement a lot of best practices on our own, but business does not work in that sense. There needs to be a certain standardization. So the moment there's a licensing framework and there is a certain standard that all exchanges have to adhere to, that levels the playing field, and that gives us ample opportunities to implement all sorts of safeguards and controls. So whether it is the travel rule, just for all of your information, I'm sure some of you already know about it, but for those who don't, FATF, which is the Financial Action Task Force, is an intergovernmental body. They've proposed a solution called the travel rule. Now, what this travel rule does is it enforces, it defines crypto exchanges as virtual asset service providers or VASPs. And within the definition, it also puts the onus of transmitting source and beneficiary information on these VASPs. So at the point of a transaction, if I'm making a transaction to another exchange, I have to share identity information of the source of funds, and I have to collect beneficiary information of the receiver of the funds. And this is now happening in near real time, right? So we've been developing these kind of systems in our traditional cross-border banking infrastructure since years. And today we've come to the point where we have SWIFT and where we have these kind of frameworks. So in terms of that particular use case, crypto is making that much faster, much more efficient. And there is always a confusion. In fact, like you mentioned, there's the whole point around hacking and frauds, right? One point I would like to make in that context is that traceability is really the hallmark of cryptocurrency. And I think my fellow panelists will also concur. If you've had a transaction in a cryptocurrency, that transaction, though pseudonymously, will always remain on the blockchain. You will be able to trace that transaction, and you will be able to study it, and you will be able to analyze any movement of that transaction. So therefore, recently, $3.6 billion were recovered from the Bitfinex hack. And that was primarily because you have all the wallet addresses publicly visible. You have all the transaction details publicly visible. The wallet which had those stolen funds was tracked, and it was continuously monitored. The moment some funds found their way to an exchange, they did try to go to the darknet, and they did try to do various things to get the money. But eventually, you have to come back into the economy, right? And the moment you do that, you use a centralized exchange where there's a KYC layer. You're bound to sort of come back into the net. So just want to highlight that point. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mathur and Dr. Sushmita, for such important observation. Now I would like to come back to Dr. Tandon. Ma'am, what is your take on India having an official digital currency, and how can banks in India be equipped to deal with this financial ecosystem?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. It's obviously an important dimension to explore now, because there's a race to create digital currencies across the world. China is doing this. Canada is already experimenting with the thought of its own digital currency, and the budget announced, the finance minister announced in the budget that we're also looking at a CBDC. I think while we're going down that path, there needs to be some fundamental thinking about, what we call a currency. As I said at the beginning, what is a currency? What is an asset? And perhaps by defining this currency, which has sovereign backing, we might be able to create a better regulatory ecosystem, because it then defines sorts of assets or digital currencies which are subordinate to this sovereign currency, as we may say. But then again, there are multiple challenges as observed globally today. When we look at trade being conducted, it's mostly in US dollars, and putting a digital currency in place, which China is already doing, sort of displaces the global currency. And so there needs to be some clarity on how this exchange between the digital currency in one country will operate as against the other. So for example, we already have exchange controls in India. The FEMA governs our cross-border payments. How will this work alongside the existing infrastructure and regulations? And I think the other thing that we want to make sure is that frauds have been spoken about. So that's definitely important. While including people in the financial system, you need to make sure that they're adept enough to sort of brace any such challenges in terms of fraudulent transactions. The second is to also have an infrastructure in place. So you don't want that you move to a digital currency and your system fails you. While this will be gradual, in my imagination, that even if we have CBDC for many years to come, we'll still have cash, we'll still have part of the economy transitioning, but all of the infrastructure and the regulation will have to catch up. And in my sense, the CBDC actually helps in a way, because it provides clarity to the entire system on where various currencies stand. Of course, the RBI governor sort of said that Bitcoin has nothing. It's not even like tulip, right? So there's no value. So I think there needs to be some thinking, and it's important that scientists sort of explain what's the process of price determination. Because at the moment, the entire space is polarized to say, it doesn't have value at all. And then, we have experts who say, well, there is a process to it. So I think that needs to be embedded within the regulation as well, to say what we think as, outright speculation or harm, and what we think of as something that is reputable and can be backed by the government. But as I see, there is a future of digital currencies. We've already sort of embarked on it. India is going to move ahead with the CBDC, but at the same time, we need the whole ecosystem to work around CBDCs to ensure that this money is not discriminatory. It can be used by everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for your insights. I would now like to come back to Mr. Manhar. So, does banning all virtual currencies have a single and having a single regulated official digital currency defeat the purpose of VCs in general? And if at all, how would cryptocurrency regulation work in India?
Sure. Before I delve into that specific question, just want to lay out some context. Earlier in the session, you sort of referenced the 2019 bill, the cryptocurrency bill. Right now, we've as an exchange, as a company, we've been operational through 2018, and as a startup, as a young company, we've been grappling with a lot of headwinds coming our way from all across the place. So the first headwind, of course, was the 2019 bill. Thereafter, consequently, we had a lot of discussions with Mr. Subhash Chandra Garg, who was the head of the committee, the interministerial committee who had proposed that bill. And one very important observation came out, and that was that the entire dispensation was looking at cryptocurrencies in light of a payment system, right? So just want to highlight that while many countries across the world have regulated cryptocurrencies also, there are very few which accept crypto as legal tender, right? And it's only El Salvador, for instance, that officially accepts Bitcoin as legal tender. Most other countries do not. So that distinction is very important, and that distinction is what I'll sort of elaborate further. So what we are looking at, and what today, what Mr. Subhash Chandra Garg is also aligned on, is that regulation of cryptocurrency as a store of value or as an asset, right? Where somebody would want to invest and where somebody can essentially stand to make some gains, right? Or they may want to lock in their value and essentially hedge against various market forces, etc. So that is the single most use case, which we feel all of these cryptocurrencies, a majority of the cryptocurrencies today, in fact, majority of the trading volume that we see on our platforms are primarily for this very purpose. If the organic purpose was payments, we would have organically seen a lot of different behavior from our audiences. But what we observe as a natural behavior is that people invest, they will deposit funds, they will invest money, and then they hold that particular cryptocurrency, right? There is, of course, a big section of users who perform the trading activities and who do the high frequency traders. They also form a very important segment of this. But primarily the masses will want to invest, and they would. So that's the organic use case. In a CBDT, that sort of use case may not necessarily come across, given the fact that the CBDT will purely be focusing on a payments use case, right? Other blockchain tokens today, they are, all of them are essentially created with some or the other use case in mind. I'll give you an example of a very interesting token called the Basic Attention Token, or BAT, right? As a country, we've been discussing a lot about data privacy and privacy related issues. We're currently doing extensive kind of work on the data protection bill, with the primary purpose of enabling end users to safeguard their data and their privacy, and to have control over what data goes to whom, to which advertiser, and they can effectively control it, rather than data going in the hands of these various companies, and then they're using it for advertising, for marketing, for monetization purposes, etc. So what BAT effectively does is it has created a full ecosystem around this simple use case. It has created a browser, it has created a token, it has created a network of publishers. And if you are a publisher or an advertiser and you want to advertise, you can go to them and essentially you can, when you pay them as an advertiser for an ad on their browser, they will essentially tokenize the proceeds, and they will pass them on to end users. Users can choose if they want to view an ad. In return for viewing those ads, they earn those tokens, right? So this takes care of, this gives absolute control in the hands of the end user, and on a platform which is agnostic of which kind of ads. Because ads, mind you, today I could be browsing any website. I could be browsing on New York Times or whichever website across the world, right? I may not be constricted by the boundaries of various geographies. But this kind of a mechanism with a global asset base allows you to take care of this particular use case. Now, maybe we could apply our minds and think of how a CBDC could solve this particular use case, but that's not the intention of a CBDC. And CBDC has far greater use cases to solve. So the whole trading between countries, cross-border trade is going to be a huge one. Remittances could be a very huge one. And those are use cases that a CBDC will be well placed to address. So what about these different innovations? What about these new use cases that lots of developers are working today, day in and day out, and they're trying to come up with new applications. They're trying to make lives easy. We did not think that you could order groceries in 10 minutes and they would be delivered to your doorstep, right? I mean, a few years back, this was unimaginable. So we're pretty much at that point right now. The possibilities are endless. The innovations are possible, but we need a regulatory framework that can encourage that. So I do not think banning is an answer. And I do not think that CBDCs can solve the use cases that other crypto tokens can. They definitely have a very important place in the ecosystem, and we will be happy to support CBDCs. In fact, we look at them as substitutes to stable coins. today a lot of exchange trading activity happens on the basis of stable coins. We would want to absolutely want to have the digital INR on our platforms, and we would definitely want to. Some of the concerns as a user, not as a business, but as an end user, I would have is privacy related issues. If I'm using the government token, the CBDC, then how much of privacy controls I will have. I think those are some concerns that I have as a citizen of the country. But other than that, as a business, we would absolutely welcome that move. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for that great explanation. I would now like to throw open the floor to some of the questions that our audience has been asking. Someone is asking that looking at the current volatility for cryptos, do you suggest people to work on the startups around this industry, or do you suggest them to hold back until we have regulations? So anyone can take up this question.
So I'll take a stab at that. I think what really struck me in this conversation is what Dr. Ruj mentioned, right? The beautiful design of this technology. So once you are able to appreciate, understand, and really see what it has enabled, you are likely to develop a sort of conviction about the future of this technology. Without that conviction, it is difficult to get invested in any form, either in the form of the time, the energy that you give to the space, or in the form of money that you invest in the space. So I think that is a very critical component of this question. If you are able to understand the space, the blockchain, what this design is enabling, what are the new developments happening in the space, what has Ethereum enabled, and how they're trying to solve some of the challenges of money as well as various other use cases. I think if you're able to develop that conviction, you can easily go and volatility will not bother you. Basically, that will be a secondary question thereafter.
Thank you so much for answering this, sir. Would anyone else like to add something to this?
Yeah, I'll maybe say something. I'll add something to it. So, it's a beautiful, design, and if you have really, if you feel that you really have something innovative, you should go for it. At the same time, I have seen that people are using the technology left and right. Where even it's not required. It's as if the buzzword, selling the buzzword has also become kind of a norm now, in the hope that it's going to bring in investment and funding. So maybe a word of caution, or whoever whatever you're trying to build, have a very solid use case. Do a market study, see if you have competing products, just like any startups would do. But it's going to be there's so much now, so many competitive products now in this space. I don't think the buzz would sell much. And so just just like any other startups, it's good to be good to bring in some real good innovation into the design and application.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Another interesting question which is popping up on my screen is, what is the future of NFT creators in India?
So I can probably take that. So NFT, so India has been a land of artists, right? And we've always heard the story of how poorly remunerated artists are, and this discussion does not necessarily end in India. Even elsewhere around the world, authors, script writers, musicians, singers, songwriters, all of them have invariably faced situations where they may not have been adequately remunerated for for the proceeds that are generated out of the work that they've put into the space, right? So I think NFTs are a lot about democratization of that power into the hands of the end artists. Today, an artist can, they can probably gather a few Ethereum with a small investment of a few Ethereum, a few Solana. They can deploy their projects, their digital art on these blockchains, and they can list them on marketplaces across the globe. And if they find people who appreciate their art, they can really make a lot of money for their art. So going back to the fact that India is the land of the artists, I think India has a huge future. It's about the various UI, and because this is a complex process, it sounds simple when I say it, but it's quite difficult to mint an NFT. It's very difficult to set up your wallets, etc. As more and more developers will develop this space, we'll have easy applications. We'll start seeing more and more artists, and hopefully, so today we are seeing a lot of companies using artists to make use of this space. But an ideal scenario would be where an artist himself or herself creates his or her art and then distributes it to the world, and is able to make a good means of living.
Right. One more question. Is there any provision? Is there any provision about guarantee of this currency by government or RBI from common man's approach for investment or holding crypto as an investment? Would anyone like to take this up?
So I'll take that up. With regards to the provision about guarantee, as far as the cryptocurrency is concerned, that's the basic idea behind it. It is in a decentralized manner. Having a guarantee would defeat its purpose. So the RBI or government, with regards to the currency or the coin that they are planning to launch on blockchain, doesn't have a guarantee per se, but probably the digital coin that they are planning to launch might have. But there's still a lot of ambiguity with that regards, that what kind of status it would be given to it, what kind of coin it would be, even if it would be on a blockchain or some other kind of form. So there's still kind of ambiguity there. As far as only the taxation structure has been laid out in front of us, but every other thing still remains of every person's opinion for now. So we'd have to still wait and watch for that thing.
Right. Thank you so much for answering that, sir. The last question from our audience for the day. From wallets, how to transfer money in bank account? I'm not sure if you guys want to take this up.
So it's very simple. If you have certain cryptocurrency on an exchange, you can trade in any market that has INR as the base pair. So you can exchange your crypto for INR. On CoinDCX, if you place your order, if you want to sell your crypto, we will match you with somebody else who's willing to give you INR in return, and we'll make that swap happen. You will have the INR in your INR wallet, which you can withdraw back into your registered bank account. So you'll essentially have to sell your crypto, convert it to INR, and then withdraw it.
Thank you so much, sir, for being so patient and answering all our questions. Thank you to all the panelists. Yes, sir, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, just one point. Please make sure you pay your tax on that.
Definitely. Thank you so much to all the panelists for taking time out from their busy schedules and being a part of this informative discussion. And I would also like to thank our audience for being so patient and putting up such nice questions. Once again, good evening, everyone. And thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Lovely meeting all of you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.